Can you date outside of your religion or race? Should you? I believe that you can date outside of your race. I believe that you should not date outside of your religion. I will explain this further on in this episode of Freedom Off the Pulpit podcast. Welcome to the Freedom Off the Pulpit podcast, where faith, culture, and lifestyle will collide harmoniously. I am your host, Minister Frankie, and let's jump right into today's episode when it comes to dating. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's coming up a lot in conversations, especially now when we're speaking about not only race, but also religion. And it seemed like those two are kind of getting blended together. Now, as I stated before, I truthfully believe that you can date outside of your race. But I wholeheartedly believe that you cannot date outside of your religion. Let us get into it. Let us explain why. I will tell you why one can be done and the other one cannot. But first, let us start off with religion, right? So, with religion, I don't believe in dating outside of your religion, but I do believe in dating outside of your race. Now, I am speaking from a Christian man's perspective, right? Speaking from a Christian man perspective, that I don't believe that you can have a fruitful life in Christ as a Christian man or woman and date somebody that is outside of your religion. I truthfully believe that that is going to just bring so much problems into the relationship, and we will explain later. But now, there are some Christians that don't believe in dating at all. So let us address that really quick, because there are some Christians nowadays. I've seen some videos where Christians don't believe that you should be dating at all. And the reason for that is because it's not mentioned in the Bible. So I get them. I understand where they're coming from. They're coming from the point that, you know what? If you're looking for a mate, you shouldn't be looking for somebody just to date. You should be looking for somebody to get married to. I get that 100%. But at the same time, I truthfully believe that you can, at this moment, meet some people. And because of the vastness right now of Christianity, and even within Christianity, there are some variances in theology. So I believe that you should date someone trying to get to know exactly where they stand, exactly where they are in their walk with Christ. Because just because they tell you that they're Christian doesn't necessarily mean that they're compatible to you. I know that might throw you for a loop, yes, but just because they say they are Christian doesn't necessarily mean that they're compatible to you, because their doxology might be different, their theology might be different. And that can cause some big time clash, big time problems within their relationship. I'm Pentecostal. I am Pentecostal from the crown of my head to the sole of my feet. I truthfully believe in the giftings of the Holy Spirit still being active today. I believe in that. I believe in speaking in tongues. I believe in the interpretation of tongues. I believe in the gift of prophecy. I believe those things. There are some Christians that don't believe those things exist. There are some Christians that believe that those giftings of the Holy Spirit have ceased, that they are no longer in function. And if you believe that, I can honestly tell you, and I can honestly say, we are going to have some problems, because that is going to cause some kind of strife within our marriage, within our relationship. Now, there are others that might be able to get over those things, those what you will call in-house issues. maybe much power to you if you can. But I know that in my walk and where I am right now, I know that that can cause some strife. So, dating, right? Some Christians believe that you shouldn't be dating because it's not, once again, it's not mentioned in the Bible. But I do have to mention, we do have to say that the culture of the Bible when it came to that was completely different. You have to remember, in that time, in those times, it was arranged marriages. Arranged marriages took place, and you're not going to do that to me. I'm sorry. You're not going to sell me on that. On arranged marriages. No way, no how. Are you telling me that I have to marry somebody that I've never met before? And yes, I understand that our families know each other, but you might hate my guts. Our characters might be incompatible. Yeah. And I don't want to get too much into marriages and stuff like that. But me being a divorced person, yes, I'm single now, but I'm divorced. I was in a marriage. And if you are in a marriage with somebody that you guys is just not compatible when it comes to characters, when it comes to traits, man, the problems that you're gonna run into. So even within the Christian realm, I truthfully believe that you should be able to date somebody to try to get to know them because you want your relationship, you want your marriage to be successful. So yes, you're not going to sell me on arranged marriages. That's not happening. That is not happening. You cannot sell me on that. If you want to preach that, if you want to go ahead and talk about that, hey, much power to you. Once again, I'm not going to knock you for it. But me personally, I will not be tied down to that specific culture of having somebody arrange my marriage or arrange my relationship. I cannot imagine my mom right now because my father passed away years ago. But right now, my mom trying to fix me up with somebody. Like, wait, what? I don't know about that because my mom's taste in what she will think of what I like is going to be completely different than most likely of what I like. So that whole idea of arranged marriages for me, it just doesn't go. But I truthfully believe that you should date, right? So you can get to know this person. So you can get to know how he is. So you can get to know how she is. So you can vibe their temperament. So that you can vibe how they react to certain things. So you can see how they would speak to you and things like that. I truthfully believe that dating within the Christian realm is very important. You see, because I don't think you can date with the possibility of marriage down the line, someone that doesn't align with your core morals and ethical values and have a successful relationship. Yes, we might agree on our theological values, but how about our ethical values? How about the fact that maybe you want a big family and I don't? Maybe you want to meet up with your parents every Sunday and that's not the thing that I'm really into and stuff like that. Things like this can come up and things like this can cause some kind of strife within the marriage. You never know. You never know. So I truthfully believe that dating, I believe that it's important in the Christian realm. But dating outside of your religion, I don't know about that. I will put a hard no on that. And the reason for that is because let's take, for example, I meet this girl, beautiful woman, but she's a Muslim, right? And right off the back, we already know that Muslims, they accept Jesus as a prophet, but they don't accept Jesus as Lord. That's a problem for me. That's going to bring strife within our relationship. Because to me, he is Lord. To me, he is God, but you don't believe that. You believe that he was just a mere man and a mere prophet. And actually, a greater prophet than that was Muhammad, you believe. So there's going to be major issues with that. Let's say I meet a beautiful Jewish girl. Hey, who knows, right? This is New York City, right? So you meet a beautiful Jewish girl, but she doesn't believe in Jesus at all. She doesn't believe, once again, that Jesus is Lord. This is going to bring big, big, big issues. This is going to raise big issues within your relationship. And I don't believe that a relationship can last, can be fruitful, can be successful if you have these type of moral clashing, these type of theological clashing within the relationship. And a person that doesn't believe in God at all, atheist, there's going to come a time in your life that you're going to want to do certain things that is going to enhance your relationship with God, and you're going to want your partner to be there with you. But since they don't believe, it's going to bring problems. Now, I do understand that there are some couples that both started out not believing in God, not believing in Jesus, and then one of those, man or woman, the husband or the wife, got converted. Now, the Bible clearly states that because of that, if that happens, what can happen is that you can win over your spouse. And you find that in the book of First Corinthians chapter 7. You're going to see the Apostle Paul speaking on these things. But if I'm already a Christian, if I'm already a minister, if I'm already at a certain level, for me to get together with someone outside of my religion, I know for a fact it's going to bring problems. It's going to bring problems even meeting somebody within my religion that is not on the same level. That in itself is going to bring problems. And maybe we can talk about that someday. Hopefully, I can get some guests that can elaborate on that, because I truthfully believe that some people, even though they're Christians, they can be in different levels. And that in itself is going to bring strife. That in itself is going to bring problems within the relationship. But when it comes to race, let's get into race now. Man, I'm I don't want to make fun of him. I'm not making fun of him, but my cousin and I, we share this thing with we go back and forth with Dr. Umar Johnson, Dr. Umar Ufutande, right? And there's certain things that I agree with that he says, but when it comes to relationships, when it comes to dating, I completely and utterly disagree, because he truthfully believes that a black man shouldn't date outside of his race. And I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Now, here's the issue that I find with that. And I'm going to speak from my own experience. I'm going to speak about myself and the experience that I have had dating outside of my race and even within my race. But I want to paint this picture about me, right? Because if you're watching this podcast, if you are on Spotify or if you're on YouTube, once again, first and foremost, thank you for following me. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Thank you for watching on Spotify. Thank you for listening on the Apple Music. I thank you so much for the support. But if you're looking at me right now, you're going to see, right, looking at my skin tone, you're going to see that I'm a dark-skinned man. I am dark-skinned. I am black, right? I'm black. That brought so many problems here in the United States for me. Now, before I even get there, let's just once again go back to stating me, right? Me, I'm black, right? Right off the rip, people here in this country began to label me as African American. And I'm not. I'm not an African American. I am black. I'm dark skinned. In Panama, in my native country, and giving it away a little bit, but in Panama, in my native country, there's a word called chombo, right? And this word, they used to use it for my dad. Chombo, 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 chombo. And they also used it for me. And recently I found out what exactly, and I thought it was just like a pet nickname that they gave us, right? But I come to find out that that word can mean a couple of different things. And one of them is dark skinned. So in my country, they were calling me dark skinned. They were calling my dad dark skinned. My dad was dark skinned. I'm dark skinned, right? So they would call me chombo because of my skin. But yet at the same time, I am Hispanic. I am Latino. I am 100% Panamanian. 100%. Born and raised in Panama City, Panama. And I grew up in Panama, which called La Central. That's where I grew up. I grew up on the street called Juan Besosa. That's me. I'm a Panamanian, 100%. Born and raised, right? So my first language was Spanish. Así que yo hablo español. Mi primer lenguaje es español. That is what I learned. First and foremost was Spanish. So I am Latino, and I'm not giving that up for anybody. I've mentioned that now for so many years that I'm not giving up my heritage for no one. I am proud to be a Panamanian, proud to be a Latino. I'm proud to be a Hispanic. Bien orgulloso de mi herencia, bien orgulloso de ser panameño, right? So I have to knock people down real quick with that because, hey, nothing wrong with being a Black American here in this country, but that's not what I am. That is not what I am. I am Hispanic. That's what I label myself as, Hispanic Latino. And the interesting thing about that is in Panama, I did not face any kind of racism in Panama. As a matter of fact, in Panama, what I faced was socialism or classism, right? Depending on where you were, depending on how much money you had, it's where you live. And there was a mixture of us. Black, from the darkest of dark to the lightest of light, we were all together. Right? So I didn't face racism in my country at all. Didn't know anything about it until I came here to the United States. Right? Until I got here to the United States. The United States were the one that introduced me to racism. And mind you, it took a couple of years for me to kind of face it because I started going to school here in the United States in the 4th grade. And I didn't learn about racism until like the 7th grade. That's when teachers started teaching me about it. And then when I fully got to high school, is when I learned more about racism. Because yes, in elementary and junior high school, they teach you about Black History Month and stuff like that. And it didn't sit with me until I got a little bit more knowledge. And high school was when everything got revved up. Everything got revved up in high school. So I began to learn more and more. And in high school was when I began to put things together and learning about the 400 and plus years of slavery and oppression that Black Americans face here in this country, and how people here in the United States, really white Americans were putting down Black Americans, and they would consider them less than a third of a man, and so on and so forth. And then I began to learn a little bit more and seeing that within the propaganda now that was being placed in TVs now in the 40s and the 50s, in the advent of television and also in the advent of the movies, you begin to see a perception of beauty being presented to people in general. So there was a time when Black Americans really had to fight for their perception of beauty, or for the perception of beauty. But I didn't experience any of that in Panama, right? None whatsoever. For someone that grew up in Panama, that grew up in a melting pot like Panama, I begin to understand how that perception of beauty affected the psyche here of Black Americans. But now I do have to say that we are living in a time and space where that perception of beauty is being flipped upside down. Oh, and we're seeing it big time in culture now. That perception of beauty. Because hello, there's so many people out there running around with BBLs. BBL is the thing now. If you don't know what that is, go look it up. I ain't telling you here in this podcast, right? So BBLs is something that is very prominent now. But where is that coming from? It's coming from the perception now of beauty being flipped. So I was able to understand before, right? Before the sentiment of pushing a specific view of Black excellence and Black beauty. I understand it. But now, once again, that has turned completely. And we're beginning to see a lot of people now not only embracing their skin, but embracing their identity completely. And I get it. And that's wonderful. That's beautiful. But as I stated before, all this is being flipped on its head. So for somebody to come and turn around and tell me now that I cannot date somebody outside of my skin tone or outside of my race, I completely and utterly disagree with that. Because we can truthfully now learn more and more of each other by the mixture of race and culture. Now, how do I tie all that in together with religion? We're going to put all this in together, right? But I truthfully believe that dating outside of culture allows you to understand the not just the morals, but the tradition of that specific culture, the tradition of that specific race. And if you begin to understand these things, the culture, the race, the tradition, you yourself begin to expand. You yourself begin to grow in your mentality, and you begin to have a bit more tolerance for people that may not act like you, talk like you, walk like you. I truthfully believe that. Because in the mixture of these cultures, in the mixture of this race, I can truthfully learn more from you. I could truthfully learn how to be a better man, how to be a better father, how to be a better family man, because of the culture that I probably didn't have, that now it's being raised and being propped up. I remember speaking to a couple of friends and stating the fact that I kind of miss the culture that I grew up in Panama, because we all knew each other as neighbors. Now here it's hard to put it together. It's hard to not put it together. I'm sorry, but it's hard to get together with your neighbor from next door sometimes. And it's very difficult here in New York City, because in New York City we are so busy and running around, and I get that to an extent. But I miss that about my culture. I miss that I was able to go down the block of a neighbor and just walk into his house and say hello, and they were able to do the same thing, and we knew each other by name, right? So those things, maybe one culture really doesn't know about it because they didn't grow up that way. But now that you're getting together with this other person, mind you, from the same theological background, let me emphasize that. But since they're from a different culture, you're able now to implement certain things that maybe you didn't grow up with, certain food that you didn't know about. Man, and actually, this doesn't really apply to because they're Hispanic also. But hey, there's so many different foods that I learned about being with my ex-wife. She was Puerto Rican. And man, the different foods that they have from us Panamanians, I'm like, wow, like pernil. My goodness. I never had pernil before in my life until I got together with my ex-wife. And I it's, I can't live without pernil. I'm going to confess that. I am going to confess I cannot live without pernil. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Every Thanksgiving now, I gotta make one. But I wouldn't have known that if I would have stayed within the race or stay within just Panamanians and not mix with Dominican, not mix with a Guyanese, not mix with a Mexican, not mix with an Italian, not mix with a European. You know what I'm saying? We would never be able to grow and expand in that way or in that manner. Now, to get back into the origin when it comes to religion, now we can clearly see that if we mix our religion, what's going to happen is that there's going to be a compromise on certain things that we can't do and cannot do. Because right off the back, we're completely and utterly serving different gods. I'm an apologetic at heart. And when it comes to apologetics, one of the things that we do is we defend the faith. So when it comes to that, I had to learn about not only about my faith, but I had to learn about different faith and see the difference and see the contrast and so on and so forth. So if I get together ever down the line when I begin dating again, whenever that is, if I get together with somebody, let's say, that does not believe in God, the problems that are going to rise up because right off the back, I'm going to tell you, I want to raise my child to believe in God the Father, to believe in God the Son that came to us, Emmanuel, God with us, that came through us through an immaculate conception through the Virgin Mary that walked among men, that walked among us, died on the cross, and on the third day resurrected. And now, because he has resurrected and he has redeemed us back, he is seated at the right hand of the Father, making intercessions for us. But he himself said, I am not going to leave you alone. I'm going to send you the helper, the paraclete, to bring into remembrance the things that I have done and I have said, which is God the Spirit, the triune God that we believe in. That's going to bring some serious, serious problems. So, dating outside of your culture, dating outside of your race, I'm all for it. I'm a big proponent of it, actually, as a matter of fact. Huge proponent of it. Why not? Don't tell anybody at this moment, tell you when it comes to race, when it comes to culture, who you can and cannot date, who you can and cannot fall in love with. Now, when it comes to religion, though, when it comes to religion, because at its core, there are some major differences. I don't think that a relationship with two people from different religions can work. It's just not going to work. I believe that it's not going to work. In the beginning, There's going to be some compromise. And then you can say, yeah, we can make it work. But once you start getting serious in your relationship with your God, and I'm going to speak about my religion, once you begin to get serious with Jesus and begin walking that path, that narrow path with Jesus, there's going to come a point that you're going to have to make a decision, and the compromising is going to have to stop. It's going to have to end. You won't be able to compromise anymore. You won't be able to compromise your values. You won't be able to compromise your relationship. You won't be able to compromise your morality. You won't be able to compromise your ethics because it's going to be either God or them. And trust me, you don't want to be put in that situation. You don't want to be put in that predicament of having to choose, because God himself said, well, I am a jealous God and I will have no other gods before me. You got to choose him above everything else. So when it comes to religion, I'm sorry, there is no way that you can date outside of your religion. But when it comes to race, go right ahead, try it out. Go right ahead and try it out. Don't let anybody tell you you cannot date outside of your race. Maybe they won't understand you the way that you should be understood, because that's one of the gripes. They don't understand your plight. They don't understand your struggle. Man, I heard this story from a black man, right? And he said he was dating this Vietnamese girl. And the Vietnamese girl was so special to him and treated him as a king. But because he went with the notion that he had to date somebody that was a black American too, he broke up with this Vietnamese girl. And when I heard that, I'm like, my God, that is crazy. Because who else to understand you, right? If we truly understand, if we truly know what Vietnamese have gone through, the war that they have had, you're going to come tell me that she can understand your plight? You're going to tell me that she doesn't understand your struggle? That's impossible for you to tell me that. It really is. Because if you know the story of Vietnamese, and even a small part of the Vietnam War, you will know that they went through some stuff. So she would understand your plight. She would understand your struggle. But yet, because she was in your race, you let a wonderful woman go, a woman that treated you as a king. And when I heard the story, I'm like, man, that is crazy. That is bananas. I didn't understand that. I will never understand that. So, to conclude, to finish, dating outside of your race, go right ahead. Outside of your religion, I don't think so. Doesn't matter how beautiful she is. Doesn't matter how gorgeous she is. Doesn't matter how nice she is to you. There's going to come a point in time where you're going to be forced to compromise your religion or compromise your relationship with God. And I will tell you that that is something that cannot be compromised. You cannot compromise your relationship with God. So it doesn't matter how beautiful she is. If she's a Muslim or a Jew or an atheist or Buddhist or spiritualist, don't matter. I'm sorry, but I truthfully believe that is not going to work. It's not going to. Man, thank you for joining me on this episode of Freedom Off the Pulpit podcast. Man, I truly hope that this was a blessing towards you. I truly hope that you were blessed by this episode. I know that it's a little different than what we usually do or what we usually did. But you know what? This is Freedom Off the Pulpit podcast, where faith, culture, and lifestyle will collide harmoniously. So we're going to talk about these things and in further episodes. And hopefully, God willing, we get a couple of people here on this podcast with contrasting views. Hey, I know for a fact that it will make a great conversation. So once again, thank you for tuning in into Freedom Off the Pulpit podcast. Signing off is your brother, Minister Frankie, and I truly, truly hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. And I just want to thank you once again for listening. I want to thank you for watching, and God bless you. God keep you. And may the peace of the Lord be with you for the rest of your life. Take care.